Sorry, just a few technical difficulties. Hang on a second. How are we doing, all right? Good. Hey, in that room out the back, someone donated a motorbike helmet and a booster seat for a little child. So I think it's still out there, eh? And so go check it out if you want. And there was some DVDs out there as well. This week, Bible study's back on. So we're going to be having, I think, pizza this week and pizza Bible study. So you're all welcome. There's only 3, I think, left until the end of the season. So, or the end of the Bible study, and then we'll be breaking until next year. So everyone knows about the 316 Facebook pages here, so I don't really need to mention that. Also, though, what I also do is I send out a text and I tell people what's for dinner. So if you want to receive that text, then flick me your digits and I'll just flick a text out to you. We've got chicken and veggie bake with mash and salad this week, and apricot pie, whatever it is, apricot for dessert, not apple. I got misled into believing last time. Someone was told me it was apple and it wasn't. Just one other thing is Andrew Marriott's running a movie tomorrow night called Mosley. It's a fundraiser, I believe, is it? Or something like that. So if you want to come along, it's like $20, but he said if you can't afford it, he's got a code that he can use to do a discount of half price. It starts at 6:30, and if you really want to come, then I'll contribute something towards it as well, so it'll be pretty cost effective for you. So in Albany Event Centre. Okay?
Event cinemas.
Event cinema. 6:30.
Animation, funny.
It's an animation. It's a little kids thing, but that's alright.
No, it's not.
Is it not? Okay, cool. It's for everyone. Cool. Just going to switch that mic out because that one sounds a bit funny and rusty. So, anyway, let's get to it. It's all been about boats this week, eh? Who likes boats? Who likes being out on the sea? Fishing?
Yeah.
All the hands went down for fishing.
No, I like being out on the boat.
I love being out on the boat, eh? There's just something about being out on the water that is just amazing, you know what I mean? It's just like a whole other world out there when you get out there, especially when you see the fish running and you see the boil-ups in the water, and then you got the kingies and snappers and even big sharks. And I had a shark once in my little boat. And my mate was like, "What was that?" And I was like, "I think that was a shark." We saw the fin. But me and Dave this week, we went along to the boat show, and that was really awesome, mate, to go along and see, you know, the big diesel engines and seeing outboards like bigger than a person, just massive, like 300 horse outboards and big boats that no one can really afford apart from people like Bill Gates and stuff like that. And it's good to look at them and dream though, eh? What's that? Yeah, exactly, mate. You got a dream. Maybe one of these days, you know.
Is it still on, the boat show?
No. That was last week. But anyway, through that, it got me thinking. It got me thinking of a bit of a story. So I wanted to tell you a little bit of a story tonight about a man named John Newton. And he was born in the 1700s. And his father was like a captain and his mother was an Anglican lady, and she had a prayer for John that he would become a preacher. But unfortunately, his mother died when he was only 6 years old, so that had a bit of effect on him. And his father got remarried to another lady, and she ended up bringing up John, but she was a bit emotionally distant, so she ends up sending him off to boarding school where he got mistreated, hated it, didn't like it. Imagine being in boarding school in the 1700s, terrible. I don't know what the conditions would be like, but I couldn't imagine that it would be very good. Anyway, he didn't like boarding school, so at the age of 11 years old, he went to join his father on the boat. And 11 years old, like working on the ships and stuff like that. And his story is told that his seagoing career was marked with disobedience and craziness and drinking, as they probably do, yo-ho-ho and a bottle of rum and all that type of stuff. And so John's living like a bit of a wild man, right? And he's only a young fella. He kept on having these near-death experiences, and he'll check his faith, check himself with the Lord, and then eventually he ended up falling away from the Lord, and he renounced his faith. And not only did he renounce it, he would encourage others to not follow the faith, to not follow God. So he's going right off path. And his disobedience ended up getting him into the Navy, the Royal Navy. He joined the Royal Navy, and then he decided that he was going to desert the Royal Navy, which is crazy to go and, probably back in those days, because he had fallen in love with this lady named Polly, who was his childhood friend. So he deserts the Navy for this lady Polly, and then he ends up getting caught or whatever, comes back, and he has to endure the humiliation of deserting the Navy, whatever that is, whatever that was. And so they ended up trading him to work off on a slave ship. And I'm not sure exactly what age he was in, but while he was working on the slave ship, it was said that he became a mocker, and he started mocking the captain and started making songs, yo-ho-ho songs about the captain. And they became so entertaining that the rest of the crew would join in. But the thing is back in those days, the captain was like next to God. So he had the power to flog you or get you hung, walk the plank or whatever. And so it's a bit crazy. But he became so hated by even his own crew members, that one time when he went man overboard, instead of throwing him like a life ring, they threw harpoons at him. So he ended up, like, the captains and they hated him. He ended up getting starved, he ended up getting flogged, and then one of the captains ended up trading him off to like a slave plantation in Britain somewhere, where he had to work like a slave. And then his father, he wrote a letter to his father, and his father went and sent people out to get him free. And so they find him, set him free, and he ends up joining this ship called the Greyhound. And his story says that he became, the cuss words that he used to use were so colourful that they called him the Great Blasphemer among the ship. And his cuss words and he even made up new cuss words that people hadn't even heard of before. So he's pretty raucous. Anyway.
I think he's my great-grandpa.
Anyway, one day when the Greyhound was at sail, this big storm comes upon the ship, starts beating against the side of it. The sails tear, wood starts to come off the side of the ship, and the ship starts to take on water, and a wave comes and washes on right where John used to be standing, right where John was standing, and one of his mates was standing there now, washed him off into the sea, gone. See you later, right where he'd been standing moments before. And so these guys are trying to battle out the ship, and the storm's going crazy, and him and another crew member end up tying themselves to the ship's pump to pump out the water. Boom, 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 boom. And in that moment, he had a revelation, I guess, if you like. And he said to the captain, if this won't work, God had mercy upon us. And then he took a break from pumping and he goes up into the deck, he goes up into the top, to steer the ship, and for the next 11 hours starts to think about what he had just said, God have mercy upon us. And the storm ends up calming and the ship makes it to shore. And that was the start of John's conversion. And so he ends up disbanding that ship, becomes a captain of his own, and with his newfound faith he starts to encourage people in the Lord. But he ends up getting sick, and then the conviction of the Lord, he ends up leaving the slave trade, he ends up leaving the shipping, and he is now married to Polly. He joins a church, joins a Bible study, starts soaking himself in the Word of God. Then he moved to a place in the UK called Olney. And could someone give me a drink of water, please? Or a drink of something? And he ends up moving to this place, and you know how he's writing all those bad songs? Well, he turns that around and he now starts writing good songs and hymns and poems to the Lord. And he ends up being a preacher. Thank you very much. He ends up becoming a preacher, and he preaches. He was a preacher for 43 years. Now there was a guy called William Wilberforce. Who's heard of him? He was the guy who, in Britain, helped abolish the slave trade. In 1807, John Newton helped write him a letter which passed that law through. And so he becomes this great man of God. And he wrote this famous hymn, and it's played over 10 million times per year. 10 million times per year. It's on over 11,000 albums worldwide. And I wanted to play it for you, but you know what? I think it's so powerful. I'm just going to sing it for you. So God have mercy on you and me. But it goes like this. Hang on. Let's get a bit of something. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. The hymn that he wrote goes like this. I'm going to play it on my phone so at least I can hear it. So I've got something to sing along with. Sorry guys, just 1 second. Let me bring this up. 1, 2. It is. It goes like this. Amazing Let's say were rich like me. Our once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear, the hour I first believed. The Lord hath promised good to me. His word my hope secures. He is my shield and portion be, as long as life endures. When we've been there 10,000 years, bright shining as the sun, we know this is to sing God's praise. And when we first begun. Amen. And so I hope you didn't have to listen to my singing again, but anyway,
Wonderful.
praise the Lord.
There's someone from heaven, so.
Yeah, I've got a few little bit to go in, eh? Hey,
Johnny Rotten.
I used to be in the punk rock band one day. That's why that singing was just yelling. It wasn't singing. It blah, 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 blah. Hey, we're running out of time a bit, so it's going to be hard for me to say the rest of this, but I might have to save it for another day. But isn't it a powerful thing that God can take a man, doesn't matter what the state of that man is, and he can turn him and change his heart, and that man can end up affecting multis of million people all around the earth. Hang on, let me turn the ticker off. Sorry, that's a bit annoying. One of the things that we've been learning in the Bible study is that when Jesus came to the earth, he came as a ransom payment. And in one of the songs, one of the versions of that song, it talks about who ransomed me. And in Mark 10:45 it says, "For the Son of Man," talking about Jesus, "did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom for many." And a ransom payment needs to be paid like when someone's been taken hostage, you know what I mean? Like in a movie, they'll take people hostages and then they have them all lined up and they won't let them go and they'll demand stuff like planes and money and everything like that. Well, it's not quite the same as that. But the way the guy described it in the Bible study was that back in the biblical times and stuff like that, they would take these slaves and the slave could be bought back with a price. And the price was called the ransom, and the family would take all their money and they'll give it to who was selling the slave, and that'd be the ransom price. And when Christ died for us, and when he shed his blood for us, he paid the price to deliver us from out of sin and from out of death and from out of bondage. Because sin has the Bible says that sin has its wages, and it requires a payment of blood. And of course, the penalty for sin is eternal separation from God, and is hell and damnation, as we know about, which people don't like to talk about. But the glory and the grace of God would provide a sacrifice for us, and that was Jesus Christ, who paid the price for us so we can be free. He paid the price to God. Okay? So, praise God for that. I just thought I'd add that in. Jesus said, "Come to me, all you who are burdened and heavy laden, and I'll give you rest, because my yoke is easy and my burden is light." What an awesome God that we serve. And that is why John was able to say, "Amazing grace, how sweet the sound," when he cried out to God on that ship, and the Lord heard him, who saved the wretch like me. Amen. Isn't that a powerful story? I've had that song over and over again, and I never knew the story behind it. And I was actually looking up a different story to tell you guys tonight, and my head kept telling me this one, and I was like, this is not the story I want to tell. And when I looked up the other story, it was like, at the end of the guy's time, he ended up doing some bad stuff. And I was like, okay, well, I'm glad I wasn't going to tell that story. But it kept coming into my mind, Amazing Grace. So anyway, praise God, that's it for tonight. So I hope you enjoyed that story, and hope you don't have to go to like an encounter weekend or something for my singing, but forgive me. God forgives me, so praise the Lord anyway. Okay, let's pray for the food, and have a good feed. We're going to have a mean feed tonight, it's beautiful.